after a service, sorry, in June and said, our diocese is interested in having churches develop green ministries or whatever you want to call it at the time. I don't know what she called it. If there's anybody that would like to join me in getting something started, meet me after the service. And believe it or not, I think 12 people from the service met in the main office afterwards. It was quite amazing. So that was the initial call. And at the time, we just talked about a lot of ideas. We didn't know what a green team was, or as we call it in the Episcopal Church, the creation care ministry. But we all knew we had ideas of things we wanted to do. So we were all over the place with that. We talked for about an hour and then everybody split and went home. And over the summer, I kept thinking about it and I was really excited about doing this. And so I offered to take the lead on it so that she wouldn't have to do that and try to organize some meetings. And I pulled everybody together in our first meeting. We did some more brainstorming, and it occurred to us that we were literally all over the place with our ideas. And so I felt very strongly that we needed a mission statement so that we were all focused on the same thing. So we put together ideas for a mission statement, lots of verbiage and phrases. And then three of us got together at my house and um, condensed that and filtered through all of the statements that had been recorded on the chart and came up with an actual mission statement. And that was very powerful because that is what kind of drove us to stay focused on what our mission was. I had also started a creation care ministry at a different church probably about 8 years ago, but that one didn't take off as well. And I'm not sure exactly why. It was really on the cusp of when these things were beginning. So we are very blessed at St. Peter's in the Woods to have 12 people that are enthusiastic and have a lot of skills. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Stacy Remick Simpkins, who's going to talk a little bit about overcoming some challenges.
Hi, I am part of this ministry team with Debbie, who I will have to tell everyone is a superpower. She has made this ministry what it is in partnership with all of us who have worked with her. And so I'm going to go over some challenges and overcoming them. One of the first things that I think we all noticed was that our congregation had differing views. We have some that are very skeptical. We have others that are sort of in the middle, and then others that, feel the way that we do, that this is a necessary ministry. And so I took it upon myself to think about, how do we reach people? What is it that is going to make people understand the importance of our creation care ministry? And so it's been an evolution over time, but our congregation, I think, is far more invested now than they've ever been. And so one of the strategies that I started with is I'm a birder. And so I started doing bird surveys because I wanted to demonstrate how important our forest was to bird life. And it turns out that after doing 2 years of research and bird surveys, we're a fly through. So that means that we go from, in the wintertime, maybe 10 to 15 of our resident birds. And then during the migration period, we can have up to 70 or 80 species of birds. And many of those are using our forest as stopovers before they continue on. And then in the summer, when things sort of even out, we're anywhere from 50 to 60 species of birds of all kinds. So I started looking at that, pulling that together. Then we have a meditation trail, which I'm going to be working with Debbie to oversee. And but as time went on, I started writing a column called Sanctuary Minute, which sort of linked in with our liturgy and our seasons of the year. And it was a very powerful thing for one person who was a scientist who's very skeptical, came up to me months later and said, I just love those columns. I want you, would you keep writing them? So, and then Debbie coordinated a huge Earth Day. We had a festival, and she said, well, why don't we think about those people who are the scientists for whom, the poetry and all of that doesn't necessarily reach them the same way. So she came up with the idea of getting electric cars into the mix so that people who are more interested in those kinds of technology questions would have access to that, while we also had our meditation walks going on at the same time. So we were trying to get to the heart of people to help them to understand why this is important and why it matters. And I think that we've managed to do that, but it's an evolutionary process. And you have to understand people are at certain levels of understanding. But if you can find a way to get them to get them at the place that it will be most meaningful to them. We have a Bluebird Trail as well. And that has been something that's been very meaningful. And some of the evidence of how this has changed our congregation include, we have a beautiful native garden up on the hill where our cross is, that looks out on the road. We have an existing native garden, which is phenomenal every year. And now we're kind of working on enhancing our meditation trail, and more people are engaged in this process now, and more interested in what we're doing, and the importance of the things that are being done. Everything from the meditation trail to composting to recycling. People want to know more. They want to be part of it now. So it's an ongoing process, and it's very exciting. But I think you really have to, that is one of the big challenges, and also figuring out where the resources are to do the things that are really pressing to get done. And that also that's a learning process as well. So you have to be patient as you're growing into your creation care ministry, or, and give yourself opportunities to, to kind of understand where people are and what kind of programs you can do to reach people, so they understand not only that they can do things that you're doing in the church at home, but that they understand that how this affects them, and what it means when if we don't do anything, right? So those are really the key things that come to mind for me when I'm thinking challenges. So thank you.
Linda's gonna talk about nurturing our green team. Linda Bellotti is also a member of St. Peter's in the Woods.
Oh, you're muted.
That was easy. Thanks. Well, Stacy and Debbie covered a lot of ground, and just in terms of keeping our group going and motivated, and challenges and motivation all tie in together. I think we have a beautiful site, St. Peter's in the Woods. I think people who come to our church have a sense of nature in their hearts. We're not a big church, but we're sort of a mighty church. We do a lot of things. And Mary Warden was our first, sort of naturalist that came to us about the Audubon Sanctuary Garden. And so she gave us a lot of insights, and Debbie worked with her to build that native small garden, and we got that certification. And I think having a beautiful memorial garden where we have done some plantings. I think investing, getting people invested in one or two projects. We have one parishioner who is an expert in bees, and has beehives as his own property. So for several years, we had active beehives. They didn't always, I think they survived intermittently. And we did have honey one year. So everybody bought $10 worth of honey in a small, bell jar, and we're able to take that home. And it said, what was the slogan on it? Honey in the woods, or it was, so I think the key piece to keeping people involved and getting things to continue is to invest individuals. The person who does the Bluebird boxes, she engaged someone to come and build a few more. Was it Steve Wharton that helped us build those extra ones? Debbie, do you know, or is it?
Actually, she bought them from somebody, but
Right, there's
yeah.
somebody
But he
outside.
helped Steve put them up. Mhm.
Right. Our meditation, we had a crew of people helping clear the meditation trail, and it also has a historical value, so we let people know about that. The meditation trail will have some signage, so when you're driving through St. Peter's in the Woods parking lot, you'll be able to see where to enter. I mean, this is for people who are not even church members. So I think the key to continuing a successful program is to have engagement from the parishioners. And as Stacy said, not everybody's in the same place. And some people are actually of an opposite mindset. They may not have as much knowledge or belief that climate is changing, although I think most people are on board by this point with all the fires and the melting icebergs and such. But I think we have a great, not only the people on our committee, which are about 12 at this point, but each one of those people have taken some aspect, and I'm trying to flip through my notes here as to Eric Menge is one of our parishioners, but he was very generous in helping us build a large landscaped area on the berm in front of our building. Not only good for erosion purposes, but also we integrated the native plants and trees to that hill. And we worship there right now for the last, I don't know, 9 months, 10 months when it wasn't too cold. We worshiped in that field so we could always see the beautiful landscaping and the beautiful beauty of our woods, because we are renovating our sanctuary. So Stacy told us about Bird Friendly Coffee, and buying that, which is coffee that doesn't involve tearing down the rainforest in order to put up coffee trees, or so that everybody loves coffee. We you just let people know what's going on out there, and they want to be a part of it. And with your bird identification program and tracking, you had a whole slew of parishioners, I would say slew, but a number of parishioners in our memorial garden listening and learning how to use the Cornell app, to listen to birds. Isn't it Cornell? Yeah.
It's the
So,
Merlin
Linda,
app.
I'm going to build on a couple
Merlin.
of things Linda said also. One of the very first things we did after our group formed was to conduct an energy audit. We did our own internal energy audit,
Mhm.
and we used heat thermal cameras that we borrowed from the Fairfax County Public Library. That was a great day because a lot of guys showed up. They wanted to use the thermal cameras, and we had a lot of fun shooting those at our windows, which we discovered were very cold and allowed a lot of cold air to come in. Checked doors and weather stripping and things like that, and generated a lot of wonderful pictures, including a report with recommendations. Now, we did that on our own. That was not a professionally done energy audit, but it involved a lot of people. And so when I stood up a couple months later in church and talked about that audit and what the results were, our rector nudged me in advance and said, focus on the money savings, focus on the money savings. And so I did. And we talked about the things we had done, and the changes we had made. We applied for a grant from Northern Virginia Soil Water Conservation District, and we were able to replace 2 old dishwashers and an old refrigerator that had been at the church since it was built in 1998. Everybody was excited about that. And we also replaced a lot of light bulbs, and that brought a lot of people in on a Saturday to get to work. And so we were building community while we were doing some really excellent things for to save energy.
And in our renovation of our nave and a little small extension to our building, we've tried, Debbie is on, she's our junior warden actually, and, you know, trying to put as many savings, lessen our footprint, our footprint, carbon footprint, so that we can have more impact. You know, I would love to put a green roof on top in some places on our church, but our experts said, no, you'd have to have more structural support for that. But any rate,
The
there's
other
all
thing we do is we do a lot of communicating through our e-news, right, Linda?
and also on our website, we have an excellent
Mhm.
section in our website on the Creation Care Ministry.
Yep, with lots of pictures and
One other group of people that we haven't mentioned is our giving garden, which is in the back of the church where we get a lot of sun. And Chris Camillo is one of our Creation Care members, but she also was the sort of force behind getting that started. And she and perhaps her own family, as well as maybe, and then as it went along, well, let's put it this way. They built some boxes. They updated what we already had, improved it, and then they built additional boxes. They put in a drip line, and they, you know, incorporated some youth group folks. Some of the youth group helped with planting and harvesting. I can't say they did it all the time, but and we had a whole list. We had, what is it, a genie
Sign Up Genius.
genius for the watering system, because it was drip lines along the various beds. All you had to do was go and turn on the water and wait around and maybe read a book for a little while and then turn it off. And it really does give people in our parish that investment in growing these plants. And then we would donate the produce to I think it was one of the Methodist Church in Burke,
Mhm.
so that, because they have a larger you know, process and system to distribute those produce to the folks in the area that need it. But it certainly helps people feel invested, which is the key. And we also had a speaker from FACTS come in. She has since moved to Loudoun County. She was one of the early folks in FACTS, and she gave a presentation about FACTS, and we had given her a long list of things that we had already done. So she was impressed with our progress and encouraged us to get involved with FACTS and the larger community. So even getting involved with you all is another way to stay invested in our climate and our environment. And all the people, you know, when you realize that there's so many people, I mean, I realize it's 18 people in this group, but you know, there's 20 in that group, and there's, you know, this person over here that's willing to step forward and do something in Fairfax County. You know, that's how it gets done. You know, just obviously there's our government and large groups that could do stuff too and are doing things, but this grassroots really is taking hold. Grassroots being native grasses, of course, but you know, grassroots is the way that we're going to build and save this planet.
Yeah, so I'm going to just wrap up with talking about our gatherings and meetings. I will also say that FACTS has been a tremendous influence on us, and it has given us inspiration to continue and support. So it's much easier to not give up when you feel at times that you're losing not either membership or people's involvement. we, for a long time, were meeting almost every month for a couple of years. And we always had an agenda, and a lot of our meetings were on Zoom, but some were in person. I think I kind of dropped the ball the last year and didn't have any meetings because of my other responsibilities at the church. But in a couple of weeks, we're going to get together at my house for coffee and make that a meeting. And so far, everybody says they can come. So we're going to kind of just revive. We've been going through a construction or renovation project that has taken all of our energies away from everything else. The other thing I was going to say that we have done is we've created long-range goals, and that has kept us focused for the following year on the things we want to work on, because otherwise it's easy to get off on tangents in so many different projects. So having long-range goals has been excellent for us to keep us focused and check off some of those things. Linda created a checklist of all our accomplishments for us. And when I look back, it's pretty amazing what we have been able to do over the past 5 years. The other thing I wanted to mention that's helped us in sustaining and also engaging parishioners, last year for the first time, we bought some of the tree seedlings from the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District, which are sold in February and picked up in March. And then we set up a table one day right after I got the seedlings at the back of the church and announced that we were giving these away free. So people could come over and say, oh, I'd really like to have, one of these dogwoods or a chokeberry bush or whatever it was that we were giving away last year. The nice thing about that is they could take one seedling home and plant it on their own property, and they didn't have to buy all 6 or 8 for $17 and go over to Sleepy Hollow and pick it up. So that was, everybody wants a free tree. And a lot of people got back to me and said, my seedling's doing well. A few of them came back to me, at the end of a hot summer and said, my seedling didn't make it. I said, don't worry, we'll try again next year. But
I think you actually got some of those plants may have been free for the Memorial Garden as well. And we had a small donation for each of those plants that people ordered. I believe they ordered in advance, or maybe it was just that you already had them. At any rate, then they were planted in the Memorial Garden, which is a small little area to the right of our church that has an altar and some seating, and I believe we have some burials there as well.
So the other thing that we've done a couple of times is had a table in our narthex near the coffee area with information about creation care. And once we're back in our sanctuary, hopefully next week, I'd like to get that started again, because education's the key. And one of the fun things that Stacy has done is to teach people how to use the Merlin Bird app. And it's
Merlin,
amazing
right.
how many people have gotten into identifying birds and now are more interested in how and why birds are so important to our environment, our climate, to the earth, and the interconnectedness of all of us. So yeah,
Isn't it
been quite a journey.
Didn't Cornell put out the Merlin app? Is
Yeah,
Cornell?
that's through, it's a free app you can download in Apple or Android.
And it's very cool. And now in the winter, or Bill and I go for a walk, I'm saying, well, where are all the bird sounds? And have they migrated, or are they just extinct? Some of them are not happening, but there
I
is quite
heard 2 pileated woodpeckers pecking on our church property this morning when I was over there. And I saw them. They were beautiful.
hopefully
The
not
other
on
thing that
on
was
the building.
just, oh, go ahead.
I said, hopefully not on the building.
No. They were on a tree. We
Anyway.
do have bird holes in the wood siding that we have to get filled and fixed. But just announced last week in our newsletter, our Vacation Bible School theme for next August is creation. So now we're going to get families and kids involved, and maybe people from the local neighborhoods. So I'm very excited about that, bringing kids into it.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Stacy, Linda, Debbie, that was really exceptional. I want to be able to have time for Q&A. So I'm going to kick it over to Wendy from Temple Rodef Shalom, who was just featured in our January newsletter in our Spotlight Success Story. So this is a plug if your faith community is having an event, or just you want to highlight something that you're doing, you can email me and I can showcase it as part of a success story in our newsletter. So I'm just going to switch all of you out. Goodbye. And we'll get Wendy in here. Okay. Over to you.
All right. Well, thank you all. That was really interesting to hear all you're doing. Kudos to you all for all you've accomplished. That's wonderful. It was exciting to hear all that. Our congregation, it's a Reformed Jewish congregation in Falls Church. It's at the far end of Falls Church, almost in McLean. And it draws from mostly Fairfax County and Arlington both. It's pretty evenly divided that way. We have a few sort of far-flung people coming from DC, et cetera, but mostly it's Arlington and Fairfax counties. And City of Falls Church is right there too. So we're very large. We're 1,800 families. So we're very big. We sit on 7 acres, lots of woods. And I'll talk about that towards the end. Our evolution was kind of interesting. And I really relate to what Debbie said about how being all over the place when you start a green team, you know, kind of going everywhere. And then Stacy pointed out that the congregation's kind of all over the place. We have that too. So, you know, I could relate to that. You know, I guess Linda was pointing out how you have to sort of meet your congregation where they're at. And we've kind of learned all those lessons along the way. And a lot of what we found, and this is both, I mean, I'm sort of covering 2 places here. I'm covering our evolution, but also what have been some of the stumbling blocks along the way. A lot of it has been, it's dependent on who's taken the leadership, who's decided this is important, something we need to focus on, our environment, and move forward and move the green team. And we've had our green team has evolved. So we started as a green team and sort of pretty traditional. We had a big campaign about Meatless Monday. Maybe got a few people eating less meat, we hope. We volunteered with groups volunteering at local shelters in the spring, and we built and then maintained for about 7 years at local shelters, vegetable gardens. And we would build them, have a planting day, and then the residents were responsible for maintaining the gardens, and it was with fresh vegetables. So that was kind of community stuff. We put a solar roof on our building, which accounts for 20-something% last I looked of our needs, our electricity needs. We started a recycling program. Again, that worked for a bit. And our signage wasn't great, and we found that there was too much mixed. Our waste management was charging us a lot of money because people weren't following. This is pre-COVID, and we're just about to start up our recycling again. In COVID, of course, nobody was in the building, so it didn't matter. And now we're going to start up our recycling, having new signage, make sure we do the proper education. And then I'm looking at a list here. So in the community, we also did some litter cleanups, and we've done, and we still to this day have been doing, once a year, we do a invasive plant manager, twice a year now, invasive plant management. We join, in the community as a group, usually through Fairfax Relief. And we do a project through them, and we do both invasive management and tree planting. Our normal sort of worship includes a holiday called Tu B'Shvat. It comes in a weird time. It comes in January, which, is tough, and it's a celebration of trees. We also have a harvest festival in the fall, which is called Sukkot. And so we have a couple of natural times where we can introduce environmental themes. And with Tu B'Shvat, we usually do a service and a dinner, all compostables. we work that by having basically, because we don't have a a pickup program for compost, the people who live in Arlington basically don't tell. We bring compostable plastic bags and they fill them, they bring them and they put them in their own bins. And we use compostable tablecloths or reusable tablecloths depending, and cutlery and, et cetera. And it's a potluck, so everybody's bringing their own dish to take back. So those are just a few things. So that was the green team, and then it kind of morphed. And we had and there was a couple that was very active and very excited about doing green events and things, and education. We had education programs, we showed movies, we did all sorts of things. Then it morphed. We have a congregant who's very big on advocacy. He worked for the World Resource Institute. And he's very, very big on doing advocacy work. So we joined a group called Dayenu, and some people have heard of it. It's a national Jewish climate action group. We became a Dayenu Circle, Temple Road of Shalom. And we did it as 3 pathways, recognizing that not everybody's interested in advocacy. So we had a national action pathway, for people who want to do advocacy, write to legislators, et cetera, on a national level, do rallies, et cetera. We had a local, people who wanted to kind of focus on the state and also somewhat on our congregation. And then we had a personal action pathway. And that was working with people on, what can they do personally to reduce their carbon footprint. And we were meeting monthly, and the idea was each month a different pathway would be in charge of the meeting and have us do, it was always, even the personal action would end with some kind of action or something, a takeaway. And sometimes it was advocacy also, it was writing a letter about a particular thing. And that we found that hard, because we found that particularly at the national and local level, it doesn't happen once a month. It didn't always time out with when our meeting would time out, that there would be something logical to do right then and there. So personal action sort of took over, and we spent most of the year doing a lot of educational stuff on everything from the one and done plastics issue, and again, we'd have a speaker, a discussion, and then some kind of action, letter writing or something, or a petition signing or something. So we did plastics. We had people come in, talk about the local tree situation. We had from the Department of Forestry. We had all sorts of different issues that interested our congregants, and we had monthly sort of education action kind of sessions. That was that. Then we've kind of morphed more recently, I'd say the past year and a half, to something we call the Sustainability Initiative. So Dayenu, we still have a Dayenu Circle, but that's focused solely on advocacy at this point. And when there's we need people to come out to a rally, we something's happening, fossil fuels, that kind of stuff. People go down to DC and we stand there and we do our rally. We count. Involved with Third Watch. People are familiar with that group. Is that what it's called? Third Act. Bill McKibben's group. So we'll get people to go to some of the rallies, the pipeline stuff and the fossil fuel stuff, and those kind of rallies. We have a cadre of people that show up, not big, but at least we can call on people to try to mobilize and get at least a few. So that's what Dayenu now is. It's more advocacy. Now the personal action component has moved more into our sustainability initiative. And that is sort of cleaning our own house at our synagogue. And the sustainability initiative, I'm looking at my notes because I always forget them, has 5 teams. One team was really about sort of baking sustainability into everything we do at the synagogue. In other words, every decision that's made, looking at it with an eye towards what does that mean in terms of sustainability? What does that mean environmentally? What's the impact? Kind of thinking about keeping it in the forefront of our decisions as a synagogue. And that includes doing some assessing of where we're at, and we're kind of working on that. Looked at our investments. We looked at what percentage of our investments are in fossil fuels, looked at what, where's our money going, our endowments, our investments. And we found that it's pretty low, but we're gonna try to get lower, working on that. We had a green life cycle event group. We have bar and bat mitzvahs, we have weddings, those kind of events. How could we make those more sustainable? Everything from the community service projects that the bar and bat mitzvah children have to do. Could we get them doing stuff, climate action type stuff, to vegetarian, having vegetarian meals, to the stuff that's in our synagogue when they use or rent our synagogue space for their party. How could we green up those life cycle events? How can we encourage people to move in that direction? So we're still working on that. And I can give people sort of some details of where we've gone with that. And the two areas that I've been most involved with and that I've left for last, one is land care, and we've had a lot of success with that. We made the decision to hire, I think it's called IPC, it's the same group that works in Fairfax County to eradicate the invasives, and we did go chemical, which at first I was appalled, but we have these 7 acres, we have beautiful woods, and they were just so overrun, it was beyond what volunteers could handle. So we did hire a group that's on I think a 3 to 5 year, once or twice a year coming in. And once we get those down to manageable scope, the invasives to a manageable scope on our property, we're gonna then have a cadre of volunteers that are gonna keep up and keep the invasives out. But it's already made a huge difference with our woods. We've also have a model native garden we put in that we, encourage people to come take a look at, and it's small, but it's nice. We have a meditation garden where we planted which was already there, but we planted more natives there. We planted more natives all over our property, as much as possible, wherever we could. So the land care group, our next step is on March 3rd. We're adjacent to Haycock Longfellow Park, and it is a very sad park in terms of, it's a small park, but it is, every tree is furry. I mean, it's really bad. It's a pretty little park, but it's just, if you know what you're looking for, it's really bad. So we have a big effort with Haycock School that's right there, Longfellow Middle School. So it's the outside community plus congregants. We're going to hopefully get a large group, hope for good weather, and do a big tree rescue in that park. So that's another, we're trying to be good neighbors. And it's also a little self-serving too, because once we clean out our property, if we don't clean out the property that abuts our property, we're just going to keep having the problem as the birds pass through and the animals pass through and bring back the seeds of the invasives and et cetera. So there's a little self-serving, but it's not really. We really want to work with the community and extend the work we've been doing on our own property. And the final group, that team that's part of our sustainability initiative, has been to reduce waste generation. And as I said before, our recycling was kind of a bust the first time through. We thought people sort of knew what to do. We had signage, but they weren't paying attention. A lot of trash ended up in the recycling bin. We have new ideas. We're moving to a whole thing. And we're also moving into composting. One of the problems that I think all our faith communities probably share is the sort of the different pockets for where this has to take place. Like we have a religious school, so their recycling, composting kind of needs would be very different than the staff that works in the building, versus events in the building, versus when we have services, versus when we have our early childhood center is another place. So we have all these sort of different systems that we need to put into place for each of those. And one of the things we discovered was that all the ordering for the compostable materials was done in utensils and plates and things like that, where food served, it was done in silos. Each of those different organizations, our committees would do their own, each committee would do their own ordering. The religious school did its own ordering, the early childhood center. So what we're trying to do is bring that all together, find one source, and have it all be compostable. Everything that's ordered, utensils, plate, tablecloth, everything be compostable. Bring back compost crew. We did start with compost crew, but we didn't sustain. Bring back compost crew, and then set things in motion, get the systems going. We decided instead of trying to do it all at once, we're going to start small and prioritize which, and we're just in the process of deciding where to start, which pocket to start with, but to start with one of those and do one or two at a time. Develop a system for the religious school. Boom, put that in place for composting and recycling. Then move on to perhaps our Friday night services are always followed by a food event called an Oneg Shabbat. Big food, not big food, but desserts and things, and of course wastage and stuff. Maybe do that as our low-hanging fruit, and maybe the staff as the 30 people that work in our building, develop an office system for them for recycling, composting. So start with the pockets and do small. So that's kind of because every time we tried to approach this, and it just was like we were trying to do everything at once. It was just not working because each of these sort of pockets needs a different system. What else did I write down? That's kind of where I'm gonna leave it right now. So that's where we're at. The hurdles are sustaining the people that get excited and lead these efforts, sustaining their leadership and keeping that going, even once they maybe step down for other reasons and move on to something else. Sustaining their efforts has been, something that we need to work on. And again, education of congregants, bringing congregants in. We have a nice cadre of people who are involved and excited, keeping that going, making sure that we're doing the ongoing events and getting people in our congregations doing a lot of, because it's big, there's a lot going on. So keeping people focused on this particular issue sometimes can be challenging.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was really incredible. Thank you. I'm
Nobody's
gonna.
overtime.
Oh, that was great. I wish we had made this meeting, at least 2 hours. This is really great. I'm going to kick this over to Margaret Fisher, and I'm so sorry, Margaret. We do want to save some time for Q&A, so I'm going to kick it to you. Where are you?
Right. Yes. So second everything everyone said, and I'm going to skip almost everything that I was going to say and just mention very quickly 4 things that I thought might be just kind of helpful little tips. And meanwhile, I'll just show you a few pretty pictures, just to give you something different to look at. Hope you're seeing my pictures. Right, so I'm from Herndon Friends Meeting, and we're embarrassingly small. We only have, it's a 2-room building, and only 40 or 50 people sit down on a Sunday. So we don't have anything like the challenges, and our green team has been completely smooth. But I'll just mention, as I said, a few things that maybe you'll find fun. One is that we have been trying to get people to eat more plant-based, or, well, very gently, right? We're not going after them, but we've just been talking about it and keeping it front and center and having everything labeled. And one of the very fun things that we did was have on 2 occasions near holidays, we had vegan tasting feasts where we brought all the food and people got to taste, different kinds of milk and different kinds of sausages and different kinds of pizza and stuff like that. Another helpful thing that we did along the way early on when we were thinking about the landscaping was that we did a showing of Hometown Habitat. That movie, you can take just a segment of it, like 25 minutes. It's the perfect length to introduce Doug Tallamy and all his ideas. And part of it is about faith communities. And the people who sat down in front of that probably didn't really know much about it at that point. And 25 minutes later, they were completely sold and wanted to have a showing for the whole neighborhood, which we did. And that was a helpful introduction for actually doing landscaping, but to present them with a proposal for $10,000 all at once seemed like a lot. And so we did 2 things in that regard. One is that we had a landscaper come and make a very rough master plan for the property. And then we blew it up really big and we stuck it in like the entryway so that people could actually get it, really see what we might be talking about. And that only costs like $450 or something like that, as opposed to asking for $11,000 up front. And then the other thing that was extremely helpful was that we applied for a VCAP grant, this conservation grant, landscaping grant. And that's a matching grant, and it was, I think we got like $3,500 out of it, but just the idea of free money was enough to get them to say, oh yeah, okay, we'll spend 11,000. Whereas if I just asked for, 7,500, I don't think I would have gotten it. And then the last thing I want to mention is that a couple years ago, we had a little discussion at our business meeting, and we proposed a minute, which is like a commitment, to say that whenever we are faced with having to spend money to reduce our carbon footprint and increase our be better environmentally, that we would spend the money if we had it. So it's like everyone agreed to that. And then we came back to them and said we want to put on solar panels. And they said yes. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I'm so sorry that we had to rush you.
know.
The first question, what was the name of the movie that you referenced? David Kepley has asked this.
Hometown Habitat. And I can get you actually, I'm still in touch with the filmmaker. I can get you a link to view it online if you want to, as long as you don't show it to anyone else, right? Because there is a small, fee to watch the movie.
I can include the Hometown Habitat information in the email that follows this. I'll also include the funding opportunities we were going to talk about and the advocacy opportunities, and we can go right into the Q&A and spend the remaining time asking our great panel questions. If you want to add your question to the chat, feel free, or if you just want to unmute yourself and ask, please go ahead. Anybody have a question?
I'd like to know if they got a help when they got solar panels for their church. Did they get grants?
We didn't.
Um,
We didn't.
I wasn't involved in that. Are you talking to Margaret or are you talking to me? I'm not sure.
Well, both. I mean, yeah, because our church wants to do it, but we don't have money, so we're looking into grants.
Right. Our synagogue did not get grants that I know of, but they have, it's a loan system that it's not a grant. There was some way they financed it that I don't know all the financing. If you want the details, I could probably look that up for you, but I wasn't involved in that project. But it was a way to do it that was very cost effective. It was definitely something that made sense for our congregation without a huge beginning outlay, because again, it's a big roof. So
they definitely didn't have a grant for it, like you said, Wendy. But one thing, I think Faith Alliance just did something earlier in the week, which I think was coordinated with with Fairfax County, that talks about potential money or whatever. So I think they should definitely look at that. I don't know if that rewiring.org has information also about how to figure that out. But we could try to get that to Christine to forward if we find some good resources.
Yeah, we did just have a webinar. It was about HVACs and heat pumps and funding sources, but a lot of that is funding from the government, and the government you can use that money for other energy efficiency projects. And so we'll include that webinar. It's not yet on our YouTube, but it will be, and I'll include that in the email that goes out after this. We'll probably send that email next week, and that will be included. I think
Very
David, did you have?
quickly,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, Lori, very quickly. There are this model when it's coming to financing solar panels, where there are contractors that take up front the cost of the full investment, And with the saving of the energy that it is realized, then there is a payback time that is called escrows. So there are financial schemes that are coming out now to facilitate the solar process. But as Christine says, we can send you, offline and put you in touch with all the work that FACTS is doing on the solar and social dimension to help you move forward in your congregation with the solar dimension.
Okay, I think, David, did you have another question? Do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I put it in the chat. Do you want me to read it or?
Yeah, please read it if you feel comfortable.
Sure. Several of the panelists talked about composting. And so my question was, there's a couple ways of doing this. One is to handle the composting on site. In other words, have a bin on site and someone has to maintain that. Or the other way of doing it, which is what I'm thinking of doing at my church, is there are contractors who will provide you with like a trash barrel, and then your congregants would bring in their compostable materials and you would dump it in there, and then they would pick it up like somebody, like your trash service picks up your trash. Which model did you folks who are doing composting, which one did you use and how successful has it been? Thanks.
I will say that at St. Peter's in the Woods, we do a little bit of composting, and I'm the composter. And so I take the food waste to the Fairfax County I-66 transfer station and dump it in there. But we live fairly close to that, so it's convenient. Other places would be more difficult to do that.
I think it was Wendy who mentioned.
I unfortunately have to get off in 2 minutes, but I'll just answer that question really quickly. We do have compost crew. For a while we started with compost crew. We had to end it because we didn't have our system in place properly. So we've suspended our contract with them. But compost crew will come and pick it up once or twice a week. And it's pretty easy. They give you the bins, they give you everything. You just have to collect it, have your custodial staff or whoever, collect, depending how big you are, collect it, put it in, the night before, they can pick it up, it's done. But you have to have the supplies on hand. You have to have the compostable stuff, not just all the foodstuffs, but the utensils and all the dishes, all that stuff that goes with that. And that there is an expense with that. And that's the pushback you get sometimes, is the extra expense of buying compostable material, utensils and dishware, etc. So
at our church, one of the first things we spent some of our creation care budget on was new dishes. We bought Corelle dishes. And with the 2 new dishwashers that we put in when I talked about the energy audit, we are using almost exclusively washable dishes. But that in itself is a lot of work too. Somebody has to go back and empty the dishwasher. And if there were too many dishes to fit in all of them, you have to save those for the next day and start it all over again. So there's a reason why they make possible or compostable or disposable plates and silverware.
So Wendy, I would suggest you start with the kids, with the school, the early learning, because then they'll turn around and tell their parents to do it.
Right. That's what we're hoping. That's why I think we're going to start with the religious school and then maybe the early childhood center. We're working on the priorities right now, where we're going to go. I do have to leave. I'm sorry. Take care all. Thank you all for having me on.
I just want to add in quickly that our congregation, Trinity Presbyterian, is looking into the composting. And I think what we're going to do for interim, at least, is take it ourselves to moms. They seem to be quite willing to have a community use their bin out back, and that's really close for us. Then when the farmers markets are open, they receive. So there's no charge for that.
You're talking about moms, my organic market? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some options, some ideas about composting.
Yeah, Nancy, that's exactly where I was.
Yeah.
At a farmer's market. But then, of course, they closed down in, October or whatever, November. And so during the winter, I asked him, well, can you pick it up at my church? He says, sure, but there's a charge. And the charge is about $40 a month. So we have to, I put that in for our budget. I haven't been told yet where I've got the money yet. But that's my game plan. So thanks. That's exactly where I found
Yeah.
out. Thanks.
That's where we are too. And we decided we want to just get rid of the non-compostable plates and et cetera. Donate them, send them home with somebody, whatever, and have a big statement at probably Earth Day time that, okay, now we're using this new system, and celebrate that together.
That's incredible. We're at 4:02 and I will add you one more. Linda, did you want to?
I just, when you said Earth Day, I remembered our Earth Day events that we had in the parking lot and the electric cars. But one of the motivators to get that going was to have a electronic recycling post. We hired one of those companies that will take electronics, and we got, that was it's folks who didn't come for anything else came to drop off their electronics. So that was a good a draw. Shredding, although shredding is not you can't really compost or recycle shredded material. So, but I would say that certainly electronics people are looking for places to find new homes, or
Thank you.
whatever they do with the, they take them apart and reuse parts of them.
Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to the panelists. We'll have a follow-up email. I'll include lots of information, and if I missed anything, you can just email me. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. And again, we meet the third Thursday of every month, and we'll send out the topic of discussion. If you have ideas for topics that you want, please email me or email me at Christine@faithforclimate.org or the info account, and we'll take requests for topics. And thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.